All right, welcome one and all to A Teacher Episode 2 review podcast. I thought this time around I wanted to pull up a little list here 15 teachers who slept with their students. This is a thing that's been going on for a long time, and this is the most famous one Mary Kay Letourneau, who started messing around with this kid, I guess, when he was 12. Went to prison for it, got out, and they got married. So that's pretty amazing. And I think, you know what, at that point, if you want to get married, I say just, who cares? Let them do it. What's the difference? I don't even think she should have gone to prison, to be honest. If they got married, I don't know. But I think that's interesting. Pamela Smart, who tried to make the kid, um, or actually did, the kid who she was having sex with, killed her husband, I guess at her behest. Um, yeah, and she's doing a life sentence there. Who else we got? I'm not going to run through all these. I just want to show you the pictures here, and I want to read it, a little bit of them. Hearing and learning disabled student of 17. Wow. Also had a kid with him. This one I saw earlier, this one's crazy. Used alcohol and marijuana to rape her 13-year-old male victim and his brother over a near 2-year period. The 13-year-old victim told the court that he and McCallum had sex over 300 times. Goodness gracious. Um, Stacy Schuler lured 5 boys into her apartment and plied them with drugs and alcohol. She then spent many hours in various sexual acts with them, including kitchen table sex and group sex. The 33-year-old woman pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. The judge commented that he did not see her as insane at all. However, she did have an alcohol and drug problem, and she was sentenced to 2 years. Or no, I'm sorry, 4 years. Let's see. Jamie Wallace. All right, with a name like that, Jaymee, and you look at her picture, that's got, I don't like the term white trash, but that's got down south. Yeah, Tampa, Florida. Yeah, written all over it. Lesbian affair with a 15-year-old. Started writing her letters. Um, yeah, that is pretty predatory. Sex on more than 50 occasions in the span of 18 months. Sentenced to 3 years in prison. Sex offender for life. Hannah Goddard was a music teacher at a girls only public school in the United Kingdom. In 2006, she was sentenced to 15 months in prison for having a lesbian affair with one of her underage students. The 5 month sexual relationship between the two began when Goddard asked the minor to stay in her flat overnight after telling her a bunch of lies. Who wrote this article? It was then the 36-year-old woman lured the girl into having sex with her. Teacher even took the girl to Paris for a weekend to participate in a gay parade. It's awesome. Minor girl told the judge that her relationship with Helen Goddard was consensual, but the confession did help her. She had to spend time in prison. That seems a little harsh. 15, she said it was consensual. They were lesbians. I don't know. That's tough, though. I guess that is pretty predatory. Lisa Robin Marinelli, substitute teacher at Mitchell High School. 48-year-old mother of two met a 16-year-old boy while she was searching for potential suitors in her 15-year-old for her 15-year-old daughter. Do people do that? They look for, I guess, yeah, that's something that people have always done throughout history. Developed special interest in the lad, lured him into having sex with her. I wonder who wrote this. That's interesting vernacular. Slept together multiple times in a span of 6 months at the woman's home as well as in her car. Kind-hearted person, not the kind of woman who sleeps with a teenage boy, although she did. They supported her. The text messages and call records proved that she had a sexual affair with a 16-year-old. Let's see who else we got. Sandra Beth Giselle Geisel, New York-based teacher at a Catholic school, 42 years old, 6 months prison for sleeping with one of her underage male students. Had sex with a 16-year-old twice. They suspected more victims. The judge declared that the relationship didn't traumatize the 16-year-old, and the teacher misunderstood personal attention and affection. The teenager misunderstood, I'm sorry, personal attention and affection. Um, It was statutory rape. Okay. Which is what a lot of these are. But yeah, when they're having sex with a 14-year-old like this one here. All right, half of these are Florida also. Okay. 3 years of house arrest. Let's see. Was a cheerleading teacher at Brighton High School. Carrie McCandless, arrested in 2011 on sexual assault charges. 17-year-old male student at a school's night camping event. That's a little typo there. School's night camping event. No, never mind. Accused of supplying alcohol to the male students on the evening. Had sex with the boy in proximity to the other boys. 45 days in prison. Sex offender for life. Yeah, that was a woman with a drug and alcohol addiction. No one does this stuff who is anything like normal. 17 though, I don't know. But the fact that she got him drunk, I guess, that pretty much proves that she was taking advantage of him. 23-year-old athletic trainer Hope Jacoby. Half these women are really, really, attractive. California, sexual affair with an unnamed boy between 14 and 17. That's weird. Saw a picture of her giving oral sex to the boy on the boy's phone. Arrested, released on bail. It was illegal. Okay, we're almost done here. Let me see. 28-year-old Bible school teacher, Heather Dodrill. 13-year-old boy at summer Bible camp. Yeah, that's fucked up. I can't imagine being 13 and then this woman is like plying you to have sex with her. That would traumatize you. Yeah, that makes sense. That is very predatory. Ordered psychosexual evaluation for this woman. I don't know what that means. These women, they all look fairly normal though. Sort of like people who, here's my theory. They are attractive people, you know. They've never had any problem, getting sex, I guess, or the opposite sex. But people like this who are like attractive, but not super attractive, at least the women, I think. I think it becomes this thing where, they're used to like thrill seeking and just having sex and manipulating people with sex. And then they realize that like they want to ascend to a higher level where they're like super hot and like people are like worshiping them. But eventually, you know, they have to confront the fact that like they're not going to run the world just with their looks, you know. So then they start looking for people to sort of manipulate and control. So I think that's probably what's going on here with a lot of these women because they're all fairly attractive, middling attractive, but none of them are super like next level, like tens. Like they're all like 7.5s. So I find that interesting. There's definitely a type going on here that I think I just put my finger on. I think that they like that they expect they've been getting stuff handed to them throughout much of their life, but at a certain point like they can't get any more from people their own age. So then they just start like sort of acting out and manipulating younger people because younger people are, they give them that almost worshipful attention. You know what I mean? I think they're addicted to it. So, without further ado, yes, that's what's happening here. All right. Let's just see. I never know what to put on the screen here. You know what? Fuck it. Who cares? Wallpaper background. Let's go, baby. Let's go. All right, episode 2. And this was a good one. There was a lot happening here. So I'll just start right at the top and we'll go through this train wreck that you can't help but looking at right now. All right. First scene, abrupt opening. It's a house party, high school house party. They're playing Rick Ross. So this is the beginning of the bad pop music. the bad rap pop music in the basement, or in the show rather. They're in the basement, and it's very realistic looking, um, upper middle class basement. Very good set dressing. Although I did notice that it looked almost like they had like a little kitchenette, like in the basement. So that's how you know that it was like really rich person's house. And it's later revealed that this is Logan's house, who's the friend of Eric, who's like older, looks older rather. He's supposed to be 18, but he looks like he's like 30. So yeah, everyone's drinking and stuff, and then we get to see Eric taking a long Snapchat video where he walks around the entirety of the house, filming people like at a party and high fiving people. I don't know. I guess people do that. Although also at the beginning it says October, so we've gone forward from the first episode was the first week of school, and Claire Wilson's first week on the job is already striking up an inappropriate relationship as soon as she's as soon as she's on the job, already sort of pushing the boundaries, and so they've been doing their tutoring, her and Eric, I guess, for about 6 weeks. So a little bit of time has passed. Yeah, he's walking around. People are drinking Miller Lite out of cans. Everyone has a red Solo cup. A lot of people at the party. It's kind of like one of those Hollywood versions of a party, which it doesn't actually happen like that. And I noticed when he's walking upstairs taking the video, at the top of the stairs, there's two boys standing there who are like high school age. And those are some of the only extras that actually look like they're in high school and not like they're California like child actors who look like they're 19 or 20. Like they look like there's these two kids at the top of the stairs. If you watch it again, and they have the bad dress sense and they look young, you know. They so those were some of the only believable extras. It really sort of draws a contrast between actors and actual believable extras. I also noticed the house is way too ornately decorated. There's a lot of big black and white art canvases on the wall. So I don't know whose house looks like that, but okay. And there's way too many hot girls too. That was another thing I wrote down. All right, we see two boys chest bump also, which I guess people do that. But it still struck me as funny. And I made a little note about, like he's sort of walking around, like, he's giving people, the handshake or whatever. He's like, hey, he's throwing up the deuces. And this is sort of the influence of like rap culture and everything. Just degenerate drinking and smoking. Um, throwing up the deuces. It's like, who are these kids? You know what I mean? It's very embarrassing to be around. Basically, they're from Texas, right? And I noticed none of them really have a Texas accent, which I guess I never mentioned or never noticed until this very moment. But yeah, they're in Austin. They could be in any city in the country. But anyway, yeah, it's embarrassing when white people are sitting around listening to rap and like, trying to be like homie and bro. It's like, dude, come on, act white. At least that's how I feel, you know. So they got the keg. All right, so yeah, we have that scene. Eric runs into his old girlfriend. I guess her name is Allison, the one that they were looking at her Instagram pictures in the first episode. Um, it cuts to them. They're sitting on the bed. They're making out, and there's very loud kissing noises, which I noticed. It's kind of gross. More excellent set dressing. It's in the details. That's where the show is thriving. In the little details, they're making it believable with those little things there. You see Josh Smith. He's smoking weed and wearing a tie-dye shirt. Okay. He's the token stoner friend who doesn't really do anything. Then we see Logan Davis, that's his name. and he's with Josh Smith's younger sister, like, who I guess is 14. She is, um, yeah, I wrote down jailbait because I didn't know what her name was, but yeah, she looks looking very good in that scene. She's wearing like a tube top. Um, and then they walk in on Eric and that girl Allison. And the girl Allison has an odd line. She says, "You could do so much better," to this young girl. She says that, which, I mean, it's supposed to be some kind of a criticism of this like creepy 17 or 18-year-old guy with this young 14-year-old girl. But then why does Allison say you could do so much better? Like, I don't really get that. Then the young girl, after they walk out, she says, "What did she say?" Like, to the Logan kid. "What did she say?" And he goes, "Oh, it's nothing, nothing." So I guess they're depicting him as predatory. Um, I don't know. And then the police show up, and Eric's really concerned. And then, of course, the police, they're rounding everyone up. They're interviewing them. Got some bad dialogue from Eric and Logan. His mom's gonna kill him. Yet he looks like he's 30 years old. It looks like it's his house. And then he says she's on a goop retreat, which I only like. What a terrible, terrible reference. The reference was already dated before the show came out. Goop was. I only remember it because it was a social media story for one day, basically. Um, Gwyneth Paltrow, sort of like some wellness fucking series she did on Netflix. It was the woman who made the candle that smelled like her vagina. So yeah, the reference was already dated by the time the show came out. And I wrote the demo for this show is complacent whites because that's the only people who would know what goop is or even care. I might be wrong on that. So then we see the cop interviewing Eric, and in the kitchen in the background, there's a painting of white horses at a watering hole, which was sort of odd. Who has a painting like that hanging in their kitchen? And I also noted Eric's wearing a brown corduroy shirt, very 70s shirt, and he's dressed too well, I think. He's a little bit too stylish. That's like what I was saying with the two kids who actually look like they're in high school. They're wearing like a shirt and stuff that you get from like off the rack at Macy's or whatever. But then like Eric is wearing this like cool like 70s style corduroy dress shirt. It's just like I almost don't buy it, you know. So he takes the breath test. The cop says, "You've been having a good night." Classic line. Um, and he says, "Call mommy and daddy," which that was kind of a bad line. It's kind of a bad line. You have to call your mommy and your daddy. I was sort of on the edge. I was like, could a cop talk like that? I guess. Um, which Eric replies, "I'm not like these other kids. If I get cited, if I get a citation, if you write me up, I'm going to be screwed." He's very concerned about his future. Um, let me pull up a little bit of background here because I feel weird with just like nothing happening on the screen. So let's just pull up some Google images so that we got something to look at here. And I think that's probably the episode that's coming out tonight. Episode 7's dropping tonight, so I'm trying to catch up with all this stuff. All right. So where were we? So yeah, he sees that the cop is Wilson, so he thinks that it's Claire's sister, which it is, and he is very ballsy. He asks the cop so this to call his sister to come and pick him up. So now we're really stretching the believability here with like asking this teacher, like, I don't know where you would even get the gall to say, like, can you come pick me up? Like, ask the cop to turn a blind eye and call your sister, who's my teacher, to come and pick me up. Like I don't know. Like I would be really raising an eyebrow. If I were that cop, I would have said like, no, fuck you. Are you kidding me? What do you think? You're gonna get out of this just because you know my sister? But for whatever reason, he goes along with it. MacGuffin man. He's just driving the plot, I guess. So fair enough. It cuts to Claire's house when she gets the call from her brother. She says, "That's weird. It's Nate." And she's standing in her kitchen. And if you look, her refrigerator is like an industrial refrigerator that they have like in a restaurant. Like her kitchen looks like a restaurant. She has like this like big microwave, and like all the dishes are like stacked up really neatly. Like it literally looks like a waiter station, like in the back of a restaurant. So I don't know if they just like had like I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. That must have been an already existent set or something. Like I got some questions about that. Why they would because I've never seen anyone with a refrigerator like that. That's like a multi-thousand-dollar refrigerator. Just bizarre. But most people wouldn't notice that, right? So so when she gets this call, she knows who Eric is. So she says, "Yeah, I know him." And basically in this moment, she decides to sort of elevate things, to take this relationship that she has with this kid into a more um what's the word? Like elevating the risk basically. Like she's driving things. She already wants this to happen. And that's very clear. Like from the very beginning. Like she's going to use this kid just to get her jollies, I guess you would say. Um and with people like this, or at least like her perspective and like all those women that we were looking at who took advantage of their power differential. Like it's really a psychological thing where it's like if you have power over the other person, then it's like they can't hurt you. So you can sort of just do whatever you want and like they can't like psychologically scar you because most people have had bad experiences where they put their faith in the wrong person and then that person like destroyed their faith, or really hurt them. So like from her perspective, it's like she can't touch him. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big psychological factor with these inappropriate relationships. It's just safe, if it's a kid and you're an adult, like you know so much more about the world. It's really not fair to the kid because they think it's all fun and games. Like they don't realize that you're actually deeply disturbed. And she has this sort of look on her face, like she's enjoying like being deviant, and she goes out right up and lies to her husband, who what does she say? She just says to this guy, "One of my students got in trouble, so I'm gonna go help him out." And he's just like, "Now?" And like that's the only question that he asks. He doesn't ask like, "What do you mean? Like what's going on?" Like he just says, "Oh, okay," which I thought that was weird. Because like that's your wife, and she's like, "Oh, I got to go help this person with this vague situation," and you're just like, "Okay." So that's a little bit of okay. So then, see Eric and this, I guess, Allison girl sitting on the curb. Um, this seems kind of boring, except that the girl asks him. Well, first off, she looks like Selena Gomez. She's like ridiculously good looking. She says, "How do you always get so fucking lucky?" In relation to Eric not getting a citation from the cops, and I think that might be a bit of foreshadowing. He's getting lucky, which he is going to get lucky. I think in the next episode, finally, in the next episode or two. So I think that might have been an intentional little hint dropping, little wordplay. So then Eric and this guy, they walk over to the car. The cop, this guy Nate, puts him in the car. Um, it's worth noting he does actually look like he was getting drunk. So I'll give them that. That he does look appropriately wasted. Um, and then I think Claire, sort of is turning on this sort of this maternal act, I guess you could say. Um, she's being very nice. Says, that was really dumb, as in like sort of being stern at the beginning. Really dumb. You're smarter than this, right? So that's like the maternal aspect. And put on your seatbelt. That's yet more sort of maternal behavior. And if you look, Eric gets a little smirk going when she says that. I guess because he must already know. Like she's into me. I guess he's already figured it out. Um, if not like rationally, at least like his dick has already figured it out. So he's already happy. Um, one of those unconscious things, unconscious smiling. So I wrote, she also, in the first episode, they were talking about how she's trying to get pregnant. Like she doesn't have any kids, she wants kids. So this is kind of like, acting out this maternal instinct on this unwitting participant almost. Um, right. She tells him, don't tell anyone about this. And then, they're driving and she sort of starts like, does a little laugh, a little tiny laugh, to which Eric says, does he say Miss Wilson? Miss Wilson? Ms. Wilson? Because, how you address your teacher or a woman teacher, whether you say Miss, Ms., or Mrs., I mean, that's a big difference. So I guess, why is it? Yeah, that's interesting. He doesn't say Mrs. Wilson because I would definitely remember that. And if you call someone Mrs., then like you're acknowledging that they're married. So I don't know if she doesn't call herself Mrs. or well, Ms. MS is sort of the neutral one, the one that you use on everyone if you don't know if the person's married. You just say Ms. Um, but yeah, that's a detail I just picked up on now. But he says, Ms. Wilson, are you laughing at me? So that's a little bit of I think, The Graduate, a little bit of Mrs. Robinson. Because in The Graduate, Dustin Hoffman, he says, Mrs. Robinson, are you trying to seduce me? Right. And that's like one of the most famous lines of the movie. Um, so yeah, I think it's kind of a callback to that. Miss Wilson, you're laughing at me. Um, this is a low point, which he says, being humorous about it. But I noticed that Miss Wilson, she actually looks like she's genuinely taking pleasure in like how much like power she has over this kid. It's kind of actually messed up. She seems to be genuinely gleeful at uh, at how upset he is. But I think that they're both just sort of having fun with it at this point. And at this point, she tells him to use her first name, which that's a big deal. Um, yeah, that's a big deal. You're saying let's get on a first name basis. Whoa, you're really stepping up the intimacy levels there. You're at that point. You're saying you're putting the other person. You're saying we're going to be on equal footing. We're going to be like friends now. It's not going to be just a professional or academic, a formal relationship. It's toning down the formality, bringing it to a more personal level. So yeah, she's really up in the ante there. So then we cut We get some rap music as this kid Eric is laying in bed. I guess it's the next day. He woke up, you know. Um, so yeah, we see him in bed, and then we immediately see him like masturbating, which I mean is pretty risky. We just see his face while he's masturbating. So that one kind of snuck up on me. I was like, whoa, we don't need to see that. And then he does some push-ups, and he's checking himself out in the mirror because we know that he's going to the diner. He's supposed to be going to the diner to see this Miss Wilson character, and he's sort of concerned with how he looks. So he knows what's going on, I think, and he's planning on playing his part. He wants it to happen too. It's quite interesting. So then Claire just shows up. So yeah, that's a little messed up. You just show up at someone's house because they weren't answering the phone. Like, oh, so I just showed up. Like, if this sort of goes back to what I said. If this were like, she wouldn't do this if the other person was the same age as her or older. It would be like, whoa, you're just showing up at my house. But because he's a kid, he's kind of just like, he's like almost like happy. Well, I guess he would be sort of excited. It's like, I would be. It's like, hey, you're showing up at my house. Oh yeah, she's into me. And says, I'm going to bring you to University of Texas. We're going to take a look around. So, yet more, taking it away from the student and teacher. Like now it's, oh, let's go on this little excursion here. And Eric openly acknowledges it in the next scene. He says, it feels like you're kidnapping me, which she sort of is. She just sort of sprung this on him. And I noticed also at this point, they're both wearing denim jackets also in the car. And then they're at UT. And something you don't see very often in television and movies, the difference of height. Eric's probably a foot taller. Kate Mara looks really short. So you don't usually get to see two people on screen who are like that big of a height difference. Because they cast people specifically so that they're the same height. And she asks him what his goals are. And he says he wants to be a doctor, but he doesn't really know. He's a kid. You're 17, 18 years old. You don't know shit. Which I think that was the point of that scene, just to show us that he's got some aspirations. Oh, right. And then there's this really key line where he says he doesn't really know. He just wants to help other people. And I notice her reaction there. She almost like starts like rolling her eyes because at like the naivety of it. Because I'm sure at one point, we've all sort of been there where it's like, oh, I just want to be a good person. I want to sort of do my little bit to help the world. But as you get older, you realize that, okay, you can do that, but you just get sort of more and more modest in your expectation. You get a lot more jaded too. So basically, like she's completely jaded, and she like almost like laughs at him, I think, but it's covered up very, very quickly. Like it's just barely there, but I think it was intentional that she did put it in there where she's like almost laughing at like this kid doesn't know anything. Oh my goodness. And she says that's why she's a teacher. But as we know, that's not actually why she's a teacher, because if she wanted to help people, she wouldn't be doing this shit. So that was actually an interesting scene. And then Eric apologizes for the other night, and he says he feels like he can trust her. So with this also, we see like the real difference between the two of them. Like he is still like this, like basically innocent kid, like who feels the need to apologize for something. It's obviously it's already over and done with. You know what I mean? But he still genuinely feels bad about it. So that really highlights the difference between the two of them. Like he's still this like kind-hearted, basically a child, and and she's this sort of jaded, sexually devious woman. But when he says he feels like he can trust her, she has like this like sultry look, like looks like, I don't want to say like a prostitute, but um, it's like in the old books when they say a woman of questionable reputation. That's what it made me think of. So I guess the fact that he's like this naive, innocent kid, like she's like gearing up to like take advantage of him, I guess. And then we see Eric's old frat bro friends pulls up the classic convenient excuse to end the conversation just when it was going to start to become interesting. Um, Cody shows up so that they don't actually have to. We don't actually get to see a conversation really develop in a real way. They just talk about like one topic and then that's it. There's like initial points, um, and then it segues to another point, and then like it's basically an excuse where you don't have to resolve the scene. You just say, "Oh, look, hey." It's like in Seinfeld when like Kramer would open the door. It's a, that's sort of what's happening here. And then Cody is like, "Hey, who's your friends?" And Claire chooses to present herself as Claire. Eric doesn't actually know what to say when Cody asks him, what's going on, or like, who's this? He's just sort of like he's like umming and ahhing, and she says, "I'm Claire." So she's she could have easily said, "My name is so and so," and taken a professional route about it, but chooses not to. And in that scene, also, you see Eric um, sort of adapting the posture and the demeanor that I guess he would normally have around this Cody character. And Cody, I'm gonna be honest, not my doesn't seem like my kind of guy. He's acting very nice, but if you meet people like that, at least in my experience, the long-haired bros who are like hanging out, partying they're usually they're usually kind of douchebags. At least I never get along with them. And you can sort of see Claire is like looking down on these people, looking down on both, or like sees Eric sort of acting like, you know, like talking to this Spicoli type guy. And she's just kind of like, what? She, which I'm sure, like, that's one of those things where you're around people where you feel like you're more sophisticated than them. So you're just kind of like silently looking down on them. So she seems to be enjoying herself, though. Um, Kegs and eggs, he says. Kegs and eggs. And then in the next scene, uh, you know, the frat guy, this Cody guy, he literally just like cups his hands to his mouth and actually screams kegs and eggs. So I have no idea why they put that in. And they're listening to Fat Joe too. Lean Back by Fat Joe. Yep, they're at the frat party. Um, Cody offers him a drink, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I just have a problem. But if someone offers me a Bloody Mary at like 10:30 in the morning at like a frat party or something, I don't care who it is or like what the circumstance is. It's like it's only one, right? But neither Claire or the kid, they both have orange juice, and the kid takes his cue from the woman. I would have seen it as an opportunity, like, hey, let's have a drink, But you know, for whatever reason, Claire is anti-alcohol, I suppose. Oh yeah, because her father's an alcoholic, right? I forgot. Uh, and Cody has some bad dialogue here. He says, "Fucking cops, man. What a bummer." No one talks like that. And yeah, we see, she's supposed to be this educated, sophisticated woman. She's just at this college frat party kegger with this sort of ridiculous Spicoli character. So she's kind of like, she looks like more adult, more even more. It makes her look even more adult, like the contrast. Because like if this is genuinely the world that this kid is occupying, where like these are the sort of experiences that's appropriate to his age. like to be, sophomore college screwing around, going to frat parties where people are just acting like idiots. That's like developmentally, that's where he's at. But she's like bringing him to this level that he's completely out of his depth. Um, and then Claire admits she never went to a frat party or anything like that because her dad was an alcoholic, and she was a commuter to Texas, so she didn't live at the school. She would take care of her dad, who was an alcoholic. So I think that's a pretty reasonable backstory. Like I can make the connection there, because that will really fuck a person up if their parents is a drunk. Like even if your parents not isn't like a straight up raging alcoholic, um, yeah, parents. Everyone has mixed experiences with their parents, and I guess if you're a young girl and your dad's like getting hammered on Smirnoff all day, like and you to the point where you have to take care of them, yeah, that's not good. So that'll mess you up in the head, I guess, and make you feel really helpless. So I think that sort of adds to the psychological profile here. And then this is the point in the relationship where you start you start unloading your emotional baggage on the other party to see how much they can take. And like I'm not really joking. At least in my experience, this is a natural part of forming relationships with people. After you get over the initial like getting acquainted, like having fun part, then it's the comes the inevitable unloading of the emotional damage on the other person. And that's a psychological phenomenon where like you're sort of like hoping and praying that the other person is going to resolve all of this as this deep-rooted psychological trauma. You're like asking them like please, this is what uh, the reason why I'm so screwed up, why I'm so unhappy. Uh, and then you just say it to the other person and hope they don't run away. And then, then the longer that they stay around, sort of emboldens you to basically, to saddle them with more responsibility. You make the other person responsible for your own feelings, which it's codependency is what it actually is. So yeah, I guess this woman never went to her her Al-Anon meetings or whatever, because it's pretty interesting how much Alcoholics Anonymous, how much of that stuff, like once you get introduced to it, you start to see it everywhere. So I think that was an intentional choice that they made her like a living embodiment of the daughter of an alcoholic. So that's interesting. And she tells him that this is the juncture of his life he's at. Have fun. You know what I mean? There's plenty of time to be an adult. You can just be happy now. And then, he takes something out of her hair. So that's a big move. You're touching the other person's hair. And there's a bit of a moment there where it's sort of like like the sort of exhilaration that you get when you're, with someone and things are getting more emotional or more passionate, I guess. So then that's the end of that scene. And then we see some texting. Today was fun from Eric up on the big fake phone screen on the television to Claire. So whatever. They're texting each other. They're sending emojis. That's inappropriate. And then Eric looks at the Instagram, right? I didn't mention this last time, but at the end of the last episode, he sent his teacher the Instagram follow request, which I find it interesting that that part of the psychological drama here is happening on social media, via social media, which is true to life. It's a legitimate sort of storytelling technique. It's true to life in that so much of the communication, getting to know each other, like almost of necessity happens virtually, through social media or, text messaging, emails, all that sort of stuff. Really complicates things. I hate all that shit personally. Um, but yeah, so, but I find it interesting that that becomes like a sort of a stepping stone to where, like, if she accepts this friend request, then she's like opening him up to, it's just another instance where she's really, taking it in a very unacceptable, inappropriate sort of direction. So then when Clara goes inside, I really enjoyed this scene. Her husband, who, let me see what his name is, because that's been bothering me. Where the hell is it? Nate. No, it's not Nate. Okay, Matt Mitchell. Claire's husband with a boyish charm and a creative side that he's been, repressing for years. I don't know about repressing, but okay. Yeah, but in this scene, we see him. He's got the new drum kit. He's got the new amp. He's got some nice looking guitars in the background too. Um, I was really digging that. I was like, he's got the black Les Paul back there. And she says, you know, she asks him what it costs, and he says, uh, "Oh, forget it. This stuff never loses value." So I actually loved that line. I was like, "That's such a great response." It doesn't matter what it costs because it holds its value. And he's talking about how he's going to be playing in a band with other doctors, how they've been talking about it. Claire's not happy with this. Uh, oh, excuse me, I just almost fell over on my stool here. So yeah, she says, "Why you just bought all this shit without telling me?" He says, "It's not shit. It's top of the line." So that was another good line. I love this guy, and he also, in the course of this conversation, we learned that this is money that he got from the death of his father. He cashed in a whole bunch of bonds that his father left him after he died. So technically, this is rightfully his money. I understand that when people get married, then it becomes our money, you know, but but really it is his money. And if he really wants to buy, like, I don't see why she's basically just, it's just driving a wedge between them. Like, she's already emotionally, like, she's the one who's being dishonest. Like, she's already striking up this illicit thing with this kid. And she just acts outraged, I guess, as sort of a psychological, like, I guess, a justification. Like, where she's playing it up like, you know, like he's an asshole, where really he's just doing something that's very normal. You get a little bit older, you know, you want to start a band, which basically, when she says start a band, she's like, "Oh my God, he's gonna start a band." And I don't get it. Why are they putting this guy down? Like, he just wants to play in a jam band with his bros. Like, he's fucking a working stiff. Like, he just wants to hang out. He likes music. He just wants to play some guitar, toss back a couple drinks with his boys. What's wrong with that? You know? So that's classic, like, I don't know. I just didn't like that. Oh my God, he's gonna start a band. It's like, so fucking what? Good. I hope he does start a band. And he actually says, "Why are you being like this? Why are you being, so shitty about this?" Which is a legitimate question. Um, she just sort of is, coming in hot with the anger and just being a biatch about it. And we see Eric's talking to his mother about how he went to University of Texas with his teacher. So his mother, basically, during the scene and then especially at the end of the scene, looking very incredulous. where like she knows like this is a bit dicey, you know. Like why is she taking my son? Obviously she understands that her son is, you know, I hesitate to use the word attractive, but objectively speaking, he's, you know, a good-looking young man. And like this teacher is, you know, really sort of ramping things up. Like they're spending time together, and the mother says it in the scene. Like she gave up her Saturday, like to take this kid to the University of Texas. So you're right. That is, you know, she knows something's up. You know what I mean? So yeah, she smells a rat already. So that just kind of highlights how young this kid is. Like he doesn't even realize that's what's going on necessarily. We don't really get a definitive answer whether he does. I guess he's just so wrapped up in it that he doesn't acknowledge the predatory aspect of it. He just sort of thinks that it's normal. It's like, oh, what's the big deal? It's cool. She's a little bit older. Like he can't actually conceive of how twisted she is. Um, and then we see Claire in bed, and she accepts this kid's friend request, and a little bit of good acting from her. She's sort of like with her eyes, like she doesn't say anything, but she's sort of got that look where it's like the look where you know that you're sort of taking a risk and like kind of worried that it's gonna blow up in your face. So I think she conveyed that really well with her eyes. And then in the next scene, we see the three boys, and they're sort of just talking about what happened. Logan's mother, the kid who had the party. Um, First of all, this young Logan guy, like he looks like he's 30 years old in this scene. Like the three actors are all different ages, so it looks kind of strange when you really look at it. But this kid, this kid Logan, it looks like his mother's about 5 years older than him, even though they dress her way down in like this sort of garish housewife attire. Um, so whatever, they're talking, and you know, we see that Eric, you know, Claire accepted his friend request, yada da da. His friends just know that there's something going on with him. Because he's sitting there smiling at nothing. So they're like, "What's going on?" So they know something's up. And then when Eric's at his locker, he's looking at Claire's Instagram accounts, and she posted a picture of University of Texas. I guess what must be like a clock tower there, with the captions "Had so much fun at UT," which I guess the way I interpreted it, like that's something of like an open invitation to Eric. Like she knows that he's gonna see this, so it's like a way to maintain plausible deniability, where you just send this indirect message that it's like, oh, I had a lot of fun today, but I'm not saying it to this kid directly. I'm just sort of putting it out there in the ether, where I know he's going to see it. So very, you know, definitely playing games there, and that makes Eric. I mean, so that emboldens him. He gets very bold, and actually interrupts like the two teachers talking to each other, like the friends, and which that's pretty bold. You know what I mean? Like that's how you arouse some suspicion. But he's like, can I talk to you? And then like she says, yeah, come in to the room while I close the door. So like she's making all of this happen. And then you know, very cringy line. He says, I like being out in the world with you, which, good Lord, I would never say that to anyone. Are you kidding me? I would immediately have to run away immediately afterwards. She says, I'm glad you liked it. She looks uncomfortable, but lets him get close and basically, yeah, like once you sort of close that much distance where you're standing like, you know, 6 inches from the person's face, the other person doesn't run away or doesn't back up at all. Like, that's an invitation, I guess, to get get physical in some way. So he lays a kiss on her, and she's like tells him to get out of there. Classic mixed signals there. And then we just sort of see her. She's like touching her lips. She's really having fun there. So these are the games that people play. This is how you sort of fill in an empty life. You know what I mean? You create these psychodramas so that you get something to occupy your mind. You know what I mean? Take you out of sort of the existential, morose nature of life. You know, you turn it into a drama where you're the main character. So this was a good episode. There's a lot going on in this episode. So this one I think is as good or better than the first one. They're doing a lot with like 25-minute run times. They're really getting a lot of characterization in there. I was making fun of it more in the first episode, but this one sort of made me, appreciate the writing a little bit more. That there was a little bit more subtlety. Maybe just for whatever reason, the first one, like they had to start from zero, um, and sort of drop this whole setup, this whole story on you. So in the second one, the story gets to breathe a little bit more. Um, it still has its drawbacks, but I had a lot of fun with episode two. So, um, what can I say? If you did happen to listen, um, like me, I'm sure you're looking forward to to see where the story goes. So I could keep talking. I'm not going to. I had a lot of fun with this one. So I'll see you for episode three.